I have been nominated by the Ministry of Environment of the Slovak Republic, and I work at the Water Research Institute in Bratislava, which is an institution entrusted by the Ministry with the implementation of the Water Framework Directive. Before I begin, I would like to share a special message with you. Today, the Director General of the Water Section at the Ministry of Environment of the Slovak Republic asked me to convey his greetings to you. He greatly appreciates the opportunity for Slovakia to contribute to today's forum by sharing its experience with the implementation of the Water Framework Directive and water management planning. It is true that the Water Section is currently facing a busy period. At present, it is preparing for the structured dialogues with the European Commission concerning the third river basin management plans and flood risk management plans, a topic that is closely related to today's discussion. Nevertheless, the Water Section remains committed to future cooperation and the exchange of experience. That's the message. Let's start with the timeline. The timeline starts with the adoption of the Water Framework Directive in 2000, of course, and in 2004, the Slovak Republic became a member of the European Union. This was followed by the transposition of the WFD into national legislation, primarily into the Water Act. From that time, Slovakia became involved in the work of Common Implementation Strategy for the Water Framework Directive, which was launched in 2001 to work towards successful implementation of the core legislation on water at EU level. Since then, implementation of the floods, environmental quality standards, and groundwater directives has become closely linked with the CIS, while coordination with the implementation of other water-related directives, urban wastewater, drinking water, bathing water, nitrates, marine strategy framework, nature and industrial emissions, is gradually improving. In the context of CIS, there have been 67 guidelines and technical documents published. So at the European level, there is a dedicated mechanism supporting the implementation of the Water Framework Directive, and Slovakia has been involved in it since joining the European Union. As shown at the figures, the CIS is organized into a structured system of working groups, and Slovakia has nominated representatives to each of these groups. Before moving on, I would like to show a list from the Slovak Ministry of Environment's website of European directives that are water-related in order to provide a broader overview of the current legislative framework. As we can see, the list is long and comprehensive, reflecting the many different aspects of water management, just as the various working groups shown in the previous figure. Up to this point, I do not have any specific recommendations for your country. With the support of the mechanisms established by the European Union, any country can transpose EU directives into its national legislation. The key challenge is to design that legislation in such a way that both water management and water protection function effectively. In the next part of the presentation, we will try to draw some practical conclusions and recommendations from Slovakia's experience. But let us return to our timeline and to the story of how a country can implement all of this within its water management system. Slovakia began with the principle set out in its Water Act, which defines river basin management plans as the main instrument for achieving environmental objectives set in WFD. RBN plans are comprehensive planning documents developed according to a methodological approach proposed by the European Commission. We will look in more detail at how these plans are structured later. For now, we can note that Slovakia adopted its first river basin management plans in 2009, followed by the second RBM plans and the first flood risk management plans in 2015. In the third RBM plans, adopted in 2022, a new significant water management issue was identified. It is dealing with climate change, water resilience, drought, and water scarcity. For the current planning cycle, covering the period of 2022 to 2027, Slovakia has prepared several planning documents. At the same time, updates of these documents for the period up to 2033 are being prepared. Here I have a frame which is framing these planning documents which are for the current period. Before it, or parallelly with it, we also adopted a national water policy for 2030 with forecast to 2050. It's strategic, more strategic than planning document. In any case, we have here a list of planning documents which are current for now. Looking at the preparation of these plans since 2009, we can observe a gradual development of the planning process. However, an important question arises: who has prepared these plans? In Slovakia, water management falls under the responsibility of the Ministry of Environment. However, a number of institutions within the environmental sector are involved in the preparation of these plans. We can see here logo of ministry, but also Water Research Institute, which I am coming from, or Slovak Hydromet, or National Geological Institute, Slovak Water Enterprise, and Slovak Nature Protection, and some faculties and universities, and so on, so that we have a list of institutions which are involved. And from this, this leads to my first recommendation, actually: define responsibilities and build institutional capacity for you to have capacities to prepare the plans. In addition, we should not forget the importance of horizontal cooperation across different sectors, of course. As I already mentioned, the key instrument for achieving environmental objectives is the River Basin Management Plan. Indeed, it is the most comprehensive planning document within the water management framework. Let us now take a closer look at the process of its preparation. We begin by defining the significant water management issues. In our plans, these issues are structured as shown in the figure. They relate to both surface water and groundwater, and they also include the aspect of climate change impacts. We can see it here as a third group. We then analyze the pressures on the aquatic environment arising from human activities using the same structure for the significant water management issues. So we analyze the pressures, and then next step is monitoring and status assessment. This is methodology. All of this requires a large amount of data. We need data on natural conditions, data for status assessment, and data for describing the impacts of human activities on water bodies. In other words, we need comprehensive monitoring systems. My second recommendation is to ensure systematic data collection through monitoring programs. We also need data on human activities, permit databases, and other supporting documents, as well as models for estimating pressures such as diffuse pollution and so on. This knowledge knowledge base should be organized within a sectoral water information system. My third recommendation is to establish a sectoral water information system that integrates monitoring data, permit databases, analytical tools, and other relevant information required for water management. Finally, based on the identified pressures and assessed status, a program of measures is developed to achieve the environmental objectives, again following the same structure of fields. Of course, financing of measures is also an important aspect. Financing. River basin management plans also include an economic analysis of water use and the costs of measures. Therefore, my fourth recommendation is financing. Countries should allocate sufficient resources to water management and environmental objectives. However, these resources are often limited. For this reason, countries should also be fully prepared to use EU funding instruments that are dedicated to these objectives. So, financing and funding from EU. My final recommendations is to take a broader, more forward-looking view of the Water Framework Directive. Over the past 20 years of implementation, the directive has also evolved, with new topics gradually being introduced that were not present at the beginning. These include, for example, the need to address the adverse impacts of climate change and to strengthen water resilience, as well as the increasingly important issue of areas which are used for the abstraction of drinking water, which is one of the most recent developments. Strengthening water resilience requires a proper balance between water use and the protection of water resources. However, this balance is not fully reflected in the Water Framework Directive itself, which is primarily focused on achieving environmental objectives. Water use is largely left to the responsibility of individual member states. A proper integration of water use and water protection at national level is therefore essential. My final recommendation is to ensure a well-balanced and integrated approach that combines water use and environmental objectives within a coherent water management framework. And at the end, I mention also water resilience. Its new document adopted by European Union is a strategy of water resilience, so that this topic is also very, very modern and actual. These are my recommendations at the end, described somehow, and to see it again, and I will finish. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute. I would be pleased to answer any questions if necessary.